G'day YouTube. Last time you saw a retro racer like this come out of the PBM garage, it was our VFR 750. You guys went absolutely wild for that one. It was received super well. So I'm really excited to get into our next build with you, this SV650 sitting behind me. John came into us with a few ideas on what he was after. We took those and ran with them. Turned out this amazing custom. Let's get into another build rundown. I'm Tom Gilroy and you're in the Purpose Built Moto garage. Now, as I look at this bike, because we've been working on it for so long, it doesn't look that custom. I sort of have to remind myself what a stock SV650 looks like to realize just how far we've come with this. I guess that's a testament to the finish on this thing, that it looks nearly factory. So the major things that we've done here, apart from a few performance upgrades in the exhaust, is the body kit. So this is a kit that's come out. I've sort of went shopping with AirTech USA. They're a race fairings company. So this sort of stuff isn't supposed to go together, and it's not supposed to go on an SV650, but I take measurements, I take a look at what we're doing, and I think about the style I want to create, and then I landed on this front fairing here and this tail section. Both sort of sharp and square, really leaning into that 80s retro racer vibe. So I'll get into the details on this tail section first, as that's one of my favorite parts on this build. Let me turn on these lights here for you so you can take you through what we've done. So one of the first things that we did on this build after teardown was fabricating an aluminium subframe. So the big boxy square subframe wasn't going to work with the body kit. The angles were too gnarly and it just wasn't going to fit. It was going to be heaps of trouble. So we completely turfed that and built our own aluminium tube subframe. So that's all hidden away. You can't really see any of that now, but we've sat the fairing over the top and sort of semi-fitted that. But before we nailed down exactly where all that was going to go, I wanted to build the exhaust. The muffler placement was going to determine where our tail sat and vice versa. So we sort of had to build those two things at once, which is a little bit similar to the GT1000 that we've just released. The process was much the same. So what I did was start from scratch on the exhaust. This whole setup is custom built. So what we have is a 2-into-1. So there's a collector just here. So these two cylinders on the V-twin run into one section and then they split out into two almost instantly again. So you're sort of getting the benefits on the performance side of a 2-into-1, but you still get that nice symmetrical look of the two mufflers exiting the tail. Now, we'll try to get a bit of a close-up underneath here because this exhaust is insanely complex. It was a real nightmare to fabricate, but I stuck it out and I'm glad I did because it looks awesome and it sounds incredible and actually dynoed pretty well in terms of horsepower too. Once I'd finished fabrication on these headers, I built my muffler brackets up here and hung our two torpedoes that would exit either side of the tail, and then that told the story and let me know exactly where I needed to place my tail fairing. So once we got our tail fairing mounted up, we've got a mount here that holds the seat post. There's like a post that comes up in the tail. All the battery box and electronics are housed under the seat and under the fairing. We've mounted an orbit tail light on the back here, which is a really awesome piece. There's a nice triangular shape on the back of this fairing. So a central circular light looks right at home. Again, playing into that sort of retro racer vibe that I wanted to create. And a set of our orbit mini lights. So these are a new product that are just about to come out. I promise they're close. We've just got through certification, so these are certified street legal now. That's out of the way. We're just going through final prototyping and testing, and these will be out and hitting the road soon. So keep an eye on the website, join our newsletter if you want product updates for that sort of stuff. We got new gear coming out all the time, so keep up with it. So once that was finished, we got to shaping the seat. Now, because this stuff isn't made for the SV650, we had to sort of make sure things lined up in terms of our mounting, and then also make a few little pieces to tie it into the bike as well. Like these little side covers here. They serve absolutely no purpose other than that this shape didn't fit right with the tank. So I've made a little cover plate here, painted it in, and it's just sort of elevates that level of quality finish that people have come to expect out of PBM. Now moving towards the front, I'll go through our front fairing mount. This was the sort of the shape and style that really set alight the whole idea for the bike. So I saw this, the sharp lines and this sort of nice cutoff here, and I thought that's going to go really well with our standard SV650 tank. And mounted up in place, I think I made the right choice here, and our client John definitely thinks so as well. As it came, this is a straight race fairing, so there was no headlight cutouts or anything like that, which was a bit of a weird one. So obviously all of our Purpose Built Moto LED headlights are a circular, which just wasn't going to go, and I never try to force our products where they don't fit. I'm sort of like, you know, I'm not that vain in the stuff that we do, and I know that we can't do everything. So I went hunting and I ended up finding this Husqvarna Motard headlight. So this is obviously an aftermarket piece, but a nice square headlight. You've got your DRL high and low beams there, and it fits absolutely perfectly with this nice square, sharp edged front fairing that we've run. So if you want to come around here, we'll show you how we've managed to mount this all up. So because the SV650 comes with a front fairing already, we had some mounts on the head stem here that we were able to utilize and then fabricate our own bracket. So we've got some plate sheet metal that goes off of the head stem, and then a nice plate that mounts the bulk of the front fender here. And then we've also put in some stabilizing stays. Often when you mount these really thin race fairings, if you don't have enough bracing in them, you're going to get a heap of wobble and you get cracks in your paint or fiberglass, or even worse, your windscreen, which can be an absolute nightmare, especially because we have these windscreens made custom, one of one. You don't want them breaking because they're expensive to create, they take a long time because they're handmade, all that sort of stuff. So we want to make sure that they're all braced up really nicely. So we've got some nice intricate bar work here. This whole front clip is made in one piece. So you've got your headlight mount, your fairing mount, your windscreen mount, and your speedometer mount all on one bracket. And if you want to take it all off, it's 2 bolts on the head stem, a few plugs, and this whole thing comes away, so you can get it servicing your forks or whatever you might need to do. So the last bit of fabrication to run you through on the front end is the front fender. And we were tossing up whether to do a full sheet metal fender similar to the VFR that we've done or the GT1000 that was just released, but I wanted something that was a little bit less bulky in terms of the visual weight of it. So we've gone with a more classic style. We've used our DOI front fender kit, the stainless steel bungs and the little aluminium fender. We use them on nearly everything, and created something fairly simple that we could paint up and match in with the rest of the body kit. Now, onto the wheels. These are the standard wheels. We've had them painted in that sort of 80s retro gold. Every bike that was, you know, on every young boy's wish list back in the day, they all had gold wheels. So we wanted to make sure that we were sort of playing on those same emotions of this rider, making sure that this was his, you know, the dream bike that he always wanted. So these gold wheels came out super nice, and then he'd also gone ahead and got the brake calipers rebuilt and gold powder coated as well. So everything matches up super clean here. We've also got a set of Akasato disc rotors that he supplied. So Jono actually supplied a few of the like dress up parts for this project. Anything that we sort of couldn't custom make in-house here, he's supplied. So a lot of the GB Racing engine protectors and the little Akasato, you know, gold dress up parts on this thing were all supplied by Jono. And on a project like this, you know you've done it right when all those details are in line. So I'm pretty happy with the finish quality. And you know, everything's been gone through and everything's turned out super clean. It all sort of tells one conducive story on the project. So in terms of performance upgrades, the engine itself was left alone predominantly, like we didn't crack it open. It's a pretty low mileage bike. We did find, because the bike was stored for a little while, that there was quite a bit of rust in the tank. So we had to pull that, clean it all out, clean the fuel system, clean the fuel pump. It was actually a bit of a nightmare to get done. So during that process, and we've had another couple of projects come through the shop, I sort of realized that not a lot of people know how to store motorcycles long term. So we've actually just written and released a blog on the website that goes through what you should do if you're going to chuck your bike in a shed and not look at it for a few months or longer. You know, if you're putting a bike away for years at a time, there's a few things that you can do to make sure that when you go to pull it out to start it again, you're not going to be left with a paperweight. It's going to take a lot of time and money to bring back to life and get back on the roads. So when it came down to it, all we really needed to do was give this thing a major service, check all the clearances, and go through the fluids. Thanks to Motul, today's video sponsor, for always sorting us out with that sort of stuff. Now that we have purpose-built performance, we're going through a lot more of these service consumables, and Motul is our #1 choice. We've used them for years, recommend highly their products, so if you need anything like that, make sure you go check them out. And thanks as always to those guys for supporting what PBM does here. Now, just looking over this bike, I can see a couple of things that I haven't mentioned yet. So because of the weird routing on this exhaust system, the factory heat shields were firstly in the way, so we had to cut them off, but that was just gonna cook your foot if we left it completely open. So what we've done was fabricate off of the factory mounts a set of aluminium heat shrouds, and we've actually put a bit of like heat-proof backing on the back here, so it protects your foot and ankle from too much excessive heat. It does get hot, but it's not too much of a pain in the ass. Lastly, we'll go for the most obvious custom detail on this bike, which is the paint job. So as we were putting this thing together, I'd seen a couple of like replica race bikes with this Barry Sheen-esque replica paint job. The red, white, yellow, and black, I think, just really jumped out at me, and I thought I want to play with these colors and sort of replicate in my own way that sort of style of paint job. I think the original was like a Barry Sheen bike, this gnarly 2-stroke machine, but anyway, so we've gone ahead and played with those colors, laid them over the lines of this bike so it sort of matches with the body kits that we've used and the factory tank that we've got. I felt sorry for Justin from Pop Bang Classics who did the paint for me on this one, because I just gave him sketches and sticky tape and arrows and lines and markings all over this fucking bike, and he took that. You know, it wasn't colorized. We don't do 3D modeling or Photoshop of our bikes. It was just this stupid handmade sketch that I did, and he turned out this absolutely magic paint job. So we've used a couple of the original logos off the race bike, specifically the Fabergé, which is, you know, it was sort of iconic on that bike. So I wanted to make sure we integrated that, combined with this color combo and some crispy lines from Justin. And yeah, it really set the tone for this whole project, this retro racer vibe. I think we really nailed it with this one. One undeniable thing about this build is the sound of this bike when you start it up. I'm gonna fire it up now, give you guys a little taster of how it sounds, and then make sure you stick around for the test ride that we run on this thing, because it is epic. This thing goes hard, sounds incredible. If you wanted a bike to piss off your neighbors, this would probably be the one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Purpose Built Moto has built a great community of both riders and builders around what we do. Whether you love our builds, you use our parts on your project, or you're just here for the content that we create on social media, thanks for being part of our tribe. Next time you're in the garage planning out your build, or you're just tinkering around, make sure you jump on to purposebuiltmoto.com, support the cause and grab a few parts for your pride and joy.